everybody, and welcome back to the Silicon Nubian YouTube channel where we do all things tech. After a well-deserved rest for the holidays, we're back full force. We have a lot of good videos on tap, including a review of two very high-quality in-ear headphone monitors, one set from Yamaha, the other from FiO. We have a video of another home theater PC build that we're putting together right now, and a few other Linux distributions and some other hardware. For today, on deck we have a review of the latest release of Manjaro Linux. This is a Linux that's close to my heart since I use it on my production machine in my office and have been for quite some time now. And very happy to hear that the developers of Manjaro finally came out with the stable 15.12 version. And that's what we have for you. So let's get started, shall we? What you see in front of you is the post-install login screen. Very simple, as Manjaro will say, enjoy the simplicity. So let's log in. Login is very fast, and here we go. Manjaro, a little background before we get started. Manjaro is based on Arch Linux. Arch, or the Archway, is very known in the Linux community. I myself was a serious Arch user for some time. Arch Linux requires a fair amount of work to get up and running compared to other modern Linux distributions such as, for example, Ubuntu, OpenSUSE, even most Debian spins. The whole idea of Arch Linux is you build a system from scratch, starting from a bare bones amount of files that you put on the system, and you basically build it from scratch. Everything is downloaded as needed and installed. There's a lot of CLI, a lot of command line interface action going on. You basically build the system from the ground up, and after it's up and running, what you have is a very lean and mean, very high performance Linux system, which you know intimately because you've had to be present doing everything from installing packages to editing configuration files. So once you have Arch up and running, and if you've dealt with it a few times, you become pretty adept at doing these things, and that's the positive thing about it. But it's also the negative in that it is definitely not newbie friendly. What Manjaro has done is they have taken the solid Arch Linux base and they have concentrated on the out-of-box experience. When you have Manjaro and you have to install it, the difference between it and Arch are night and day. Manjaro has a very accomplished GUI installer called Calamaris, and it works very well, very simple, a few questions, a few clicks, and you have it installed. Their pre-configured GUIs are chock full of very useful tools and packages already, so you can get up and running very quickly. Once again, the out-of-box experience is what they're about. Codecs are installed by default. Playing Flash videos is not a problem. MP3 playback is not a problem, and that's what you get. There has been some controversy around this approach, but I found that if it's done correctly, as I believe it is in Manjaro, that it's actually a very good thing. So here we have the default desktop. Manjaro 15.12 Capella 64-bit. If I haven't mentioned it already, this particular ISO that I installed has the XFCE4 as the main graphic user interface. So we have the Manjaro welcome screen. We can always disable it if we wish for the next boot up. Close that off. Another thing I should mention is because it's based on Arch, Manjaro follows the rolling release model. What that means is you install once, and as long as you keep up to date with the updates as they come in, you will always be privileged, I guess, to run the latest version of the operating system. In other words, install once and continue to run. You never have to reinstall again. Even though the developers will release new ISOs, it's just updated. If you don't need to download them at any time, you just have to install the updates that are indicated, and you will be at the latest version. Okay, so let's get started. The XFCE4 desktop is very simple, very plain, but you know, I like that. Only 3 icons: trash, file system, and home. The default file manager is Thunar 1.610. I must tell you that we did run system updates post-install, as we always do prior to creating these videos, so this is up to date as of the recording of this video. As we move down to the left, we see the application menu with the favorites on the left and the categorized list of packages, software packages here. We'll come back to that soon. Along the panel, we have the minimize all open windows icon. We have the 2 workspaces. We have a clipboard manager, network activity, and configuration icon. We have the sound volume level, which also, if you left click on it, it's the volume. You right click and you can choose your input and outputs on the fly. Battery indicator, calendar and time, and we have the dialog box for logging out, restarting, and whatnot. Right clicking on the desktop, we have the usual things that you would see in a lot of other GUI interfaces. Create launcher. We have the option to launch Thunar, the file manager, as root, which is always welcome, to be so easily accessible. Arrange desktop icons. We have desktop settings. I love the ability to change your wallpaper in real time. We have a few configuration options for the menu, and here we have the icon sizing, and as you can see, it's done in real time. No need to push hello, apply, and wait to shut down the app. It does it right away, so that's always good. Okay, and another thing we have on the right click on the desktop, that menu that pops up, we have another application menu. I like this. I like the way it's done. It's very clean, and I think it just adds to the efficiency of using the this distribution. In particular, when you have a dual monitor setup like I do on my main production machine. Let's go over to the application menu. We have the terminal emulator. And as you can see, after updates as of the time of the creation of this video, we are running a Linux kernel version 4.1.15-1 Manjaro. One of Manjaro's claim to fame is they offer a pretty comprehensive list of kernels that you can use. I'll show you later. If you have specific needs for a specific kernel, Manjaro will allow you to swap out kernels quite readily. You're not just stuck with the latest and the greatest. File manager, we saw. The default web browser is Firefox. The default mail reader is Thunderbird. I think these are excellent choices in that they are definitely cross-platform, and their behavior on different platforms is pretty much identical. So as a suite, we'll call it the suite, I think it's a great choice, and like any other Linux distribution, that can always be changed. Let's go look at some of the applications that we have. I'm going to use the drop-down menu here. We have the settings. There's a very comprehensive list of settings that we have. All these are GUI. We don't have any Bluetooth, obviously. All these are GUI tools that we can use to change aspects of the system. For example, mouse and touchpad and whatnot. And I like that they're so easily accessible. And it makes using the system a lot easier. Here we have accessories, you know, HP device manager, LightDM screenshot taker, sensor viewer, task manager, which is pretty interesting to have right there, something I like quite a bit. XF burn, Thunar, of course. Development, we have a lot of Qt4 for development. Education, we have LibreOffice Math, Games. Steam is installed by default, which is interesting. I am a gamer, and it's good to have Steam installed and ready to roll. Graphics, we have the GIMP, LibreOffice Draw, and a simple graphics viewer which works quite well. For internet, of course, as we previously mentioned, Firefox. We also have E-Links as well, HexChat, Pigeon, Steam, Thunderbird. Multimedia, we have two audio mixers. One is the ALSA mixer, nicely done, and we have the pulse audio volume control, so all the bases are covered there. We also have VLC player, another good choice to be included in any Linux system, in particular for those who are familiar, as VLC players, one of the best cross-platform media players you can have. XFburn. Office, LibreOffice is installed and ready to roll. This is a great addition. I applaud this move. It helps in getting the user up and running and being productive almost immediately post install. The version we have here is 4.4.7.2 Arch Linux Build 3, so fairly current. System, we have of course sensor viewer, print settings. We also have manage printing, which is going to open up the CUPS web interface. Software update, task manager, and all of that other stuff. Now let's talk about the software update. This tool, every 6 hours, by default at least, every 6 hours it'll go and check the repositories, the official repositories for updates, and it will indicate to you that updates are available if there are indeed updates available, with a desktop notification which comes in this area right here. There are desktop notifications. They're nicely done. There's desktop notifications, such things as connecting to a network and updates and whatnot. Also, the icon here will change color, and it'll look different and tell you that updates are available. Being a rolling release model, it's good to know when updates are available, and you'll find that updates do come in fairly frequently. Let's go to package management. Now, by default, Arch-based Linux distributions like Manjaro use Pacman as their package manager. Pacman is a CLI-based package manager. It's command line based. So what we see here is a GUI wrapper control for Pacman. It's very reminiscent of Synaptic, although even simpler in design and appearance. You would click on one of the packages that are available, and it will give you just a little blurb on it and the version. One thing that I recommend people do is make sure to synchronize your package database. With respect to Arch Linux-based distributions like Manjaro, changes in the repositories, new packages being put in, packages being dropped and whatnot happens quite often, and it's good to do a little resync before you do any kind of updates or look for software. Okay. So that's basically it. You select what you want, and then you just click on apply changes. Now let's get to something interesting. By default, Manjaro has 5 official repositories: core, extra, community, multilib, and local. Okay? Local being what's on your machine. So it's really 4, and this extra local. There is another repository. Even though, let me put it like this, even though these repositories are chock full of very useful software, if I wanted something and it wasn't available in those repositories, there's a pretty good chance that it will be available in the AUR, also known as Arch User Repository. It's a community-supported repository of packages provided by people in the Arch Linux Manjaro community. Now, how do we access that? I'm going to show you. We go to preferences, you'll have to put in your password, and you'll have the preferences for the package manager. You have a few tabs: general. Once again, every 6 hours it'll check for updates and it'll indicate to you the official repositories, where which mirrors you want to use in what country, how should they be accessed, either by speed or random. You can also refresh your mirror list. And here you have AUR. AUR is a community maintained repository, so it represents potential risks and problems. All AUR users should be familiar with the build process. AUR packages, for the most part, have to be built, but it's not a daunting thing because it's actually done automatically through the package manager. I'll show you what I mean. Let's turn this on. So we want to have access to the AUR. So allow PacMac, which is the package manager, which is basically just a GUI front end for Pacman, to search and install packages from AUR. You would switch that on. Another thing I recommend, well, for me, is to also enable this. Check for updates from AUR. It will lengthen the time when you do a resync, but it will also keep up to date any packages you may install from this very special repository. Now we've enabled that. Now you'll notice that we have a list, another setting here called search in AUR. We can turn it on or off. By default it's off. There's another setting that we could always have it on, but I prefer to leave it off. I only want to search when there's packages that I'm not very sure of. For example, let's say I want to install Chromium. I haven't searched in the AUR. Chromium is available in the Extra and the Community, but this one is the one that's available in Extra. 174.5 megs, tells me the version 47. Now if I search for Chromium in the AUR, things get a little bit different. It will take longer, as you can see by the spinning cursor, as it's accessing the AUR. And now look at all of these. Here's a community one that I just saw. That's an Extra. And I have all this other Chromium based stuff. It's not always, all of it is not actually a browser, but a lot of it are additions to Chrome, such as plugins and whatnot. Chrome Reduced Security, Pepperflash Standalone, Incognito. This allows you to start Chrome in Incognito. It's a script. So these are all user supplied packages and configurations that are available. Once again, my recommendations, how I've used AUR, is for those particular programs that I really can't get in the official repositories. There's a handful of them. I think on my production system I might have maybe 3 or 4. I've installed them from the AUR. I first did my research and checked to make sure that the developers or the people who have supplied these are reputable. If anybody's been having problems with them, and I've installed them. It's a simple thing also just to get rid of them if you want to get rid of something. For example, it's very easy. For example, I have Firefox 43 installed. If I wanted to uninstall, I would just uncheck the box, turn it white, and then click and it would uninstall. It's very simple. Or I can just drop to the command line and run Pacman myself. That's the thing too. Being that it's based on Arch Linux, the power of the command line in Arch is still there. It's still there. So don't be afraid to go in there and read a little bit and get your feet, your feet wet, your hands dirty, and jump in there. But that's if you want. If not, you can just enjoy what it is. A very fast, extremely high performance system. Stability wise, I have to say it's been a joy to use. I've enjoyed it quite a bit, and continue to use it on my production machine, and I'm very serious about what I put on my production machine. I have tested a lot of different Linux distributions in the past couple months, being most impressed, of course, by the continued maturity and beauty of of Linux Mint. I've really enjoyed my time with Elementary OS. Really was very impressed with the new OpenSUSE Leap. Solid K, Solid. That's another Debian-based distribution that I think is excellent, and I ran it for a while at another machine. All in all, I say in terms of performance, I would have to give the performance crown by a slim margin to Manjaro. Its Arch roots, it's a very lean and mean machine, and if you are familiar with Arch, you can even go in and tweak that a little bit more. It's a great system for people who've got their feet wet in Linux, want to try something else, something a little bit more pliable, which is strange to say because Linux in of itself is very pliable, but Manjaro just takes it to a new level. They want to get into Arch, but they're very fearful or unsure of the whole Arch installation process and the maintenance of it. That's another reason you can take a look at Manjaro. It's pre-configured. Desktops are very well done. They're somewhat sparse, but quite well done. They're not overblown. They don't give you 10 browsers and 5 different word processors. They give you one great tool per task, which is very Unix of them. So all in all, I really enjoy Manjaro. I think people should give it a try if you want to try something different in Linux. If you want to get off the Ubuntu spin wagon, give it a try, and you might just fall in love with it as I have. Thanks again for watching. And we also have a presence on besides YouTube. We're also on Facebook, and we also have a blog on Blogspot. So take care, everybody. And if you like what you see, thumbs up, leave some comments, and we'd be very happy to if you would consider subscribing to this channel. Take care and see you soon.